So something that's not nice. This came out before Penn State held us at practice and media day and all those things. We found out that Kaden Saunders, Penn State receiver, going to be out with a long-term injury yet again. Last year wasn't designated as out with a long-term injury, but he did not play on offense during the season, and now officially with a long-term injury. So let's just recap where he was heading into camp, what his spring was, and what the future might hold now for Kaden Saunders, a redshirt junior who I think it's fair to say won't play this year, Nate. I mean, with that kind of news right now, that feels like it would be hard for him to come back during the season.
Yeah, I think he missed some or all of the spring. I'm
He
trying to
did.
remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, he was out there for the beginning of spring, but then I think midway and maybe even the final third it was that he missed and then wasn't in the blue white game.
yeah, so it's just been a tough go for him. It's tough because obviously he was a guy that there was great anticipation for his arrival to Penn State, and he went through some stuff, right? They're getting bigger, and physically there were some concerns there about the improvements that he needed to make in his testing and all of that stuff that has to be right before you can really be an effective football player. And so there were some strides made there, but uh, you know, I think it was a foot thing last year in
Yeah.
preseason that knocked him out and knocked him off course. And now to have something come back up and take away this season or most of the season, it's just tough. You feel for the kid and his family, obviously, and we'll see what it means for his future at Penn State. It always been, at least from my perspective, and some of the feedback is like he's a good kid,
Yeah.
right? He's not. He's a good kid to have in the program. It's just to lose back to backs like this makes it that's an uphill climb. So we'll
Yeah,
see. We'll see how he responds.
and it's the constant nagging injuries that I think that have defined his career. There was the slow start. He's even been open about it. It was tough for him to leave home. He had that kind of transition from high school to college that was he didn't take to it as quickly as some other people do, and that's a regular thing for players to get homesick and to deal with the stress of having to learn football, being a football player, and also being a college student. Like all of it happening at once, there's a little bit of that overwhelming thing. The weight thing of trying to put on weight and be bigger and physical, all these in the attempts to play early, by the way, like that, the pressure of trying to play early as a top 100 pick and trying to do things that you think are right in order to bulk up, and then suddenly you're not as fast or as explosive, and when you're heavier and you're trying to be an athlete and it's not good lean muscle, that leads to injuries. And I'm not saying one led to the other. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I am saying like that was the early part of his career. And then really the definition of that since then has been, I think it was last spring was like his only healthy offseason where he's really had a chance to put in the work. And then we get into camp and he's injured. And you and I were having this conversation of the way he looked in the blue-white game, concentration drops were, and you even saw there in the intro, like when we've seen him, there have been some issues with drops and things like that. But he was so much more dynamic than everybody else that was going to be on the field at his position that it felt like he was a guy that needed to participate. And an element of last year that we don't discuss is they didn't have that. Whether or not he was going to be on for 50 snaps in the season or 100 snaps or whatever it was, they didn't have the option without Kaden Saunders, which led to a lot of what we saw last year with that particular receiver group. And now, I know we don't like to speculate on the future of a team, but it feels like there's a lot of really young, talented players that are getting a lot of opportunity, Nate. Do you think we'll ever see him in a Penn State uniform? Because that's the chat has decided that no. The internet at large has said you'll never see him in a Penn State uniform. Do you rule that out?
I don't play the hypothetical game in college football because it's so random and there's so many different things that can happen, right? You just have to see how things take, and again, I mean, I'm not in a position to know his his medical history or his prognosis, right? I mean, I think the first thing is less about Penn State than is he going to play football, right?
Right.
Is this, and You would imagine, yes, right? It doesn't seem to be something that would preclude him from coming back if he is on that path. And some of his social media responses yesterday seemed to indicate pretty clearly that he is intending to be back from this. But you just got to see, and you got to see what where and how he can help Penn State in the future if that's the player that he can get back to being.